Hello, lovers and friends. Welcome to another episode. And this episode is for all my lovers out there that love the whole power couple idea and dynamic. So many people on social media are always hashtagging power couple goals or power couples, or they will see so many couples, including me and my fiance, as a power couple. And yet, nobody talks about the struggle with aligning two powerful people into a couple dynamic that it takes to go from power struggle phase in a new relationship to a power couple phase. So I wanted to break it down in this episode because it's a slower burn of becoming a power couple versus just coming into a power couple dynamic. This is what most people don't talk about. And I want to break it down because when two people come together who are very powerful and you see them on social media or you see their photos or they've been together for a while and you're like, wow, that's amazing. They're such a power couple, right? There's such a great dynamic and it's like there's so much power. But what most people don't share is how the two different nervous systems and two different styles of relating, of communicating, of operating, the two different speeds of loving, of navigating, of decision making, the two different levels of consciousness, and the most important piece when there is really that power, the very two different poles of masculine and feminine energy coming together and colliding, which again are not necessarily complementary, but they're magnetic. And that magnetism creates this initiation into something even deeper, which is the energy that you feel as a power couple is a third energy. Once the dynamics are danced out in a way where there's less struggle and more play and more dance, that's when you feel that aura of more of like that effortlessness love that you experience. And the thing is, when there's real true polarity, there's gonna be friction before there is harmony. It's because attraction to one another is very easy, but it's the integration that becomes the work. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be in a power couple dynamic because some people are not. A lot of people are not in a power couple dynamic. Some people are in a very like submissive and dominant role. Some couples are where the woman or the man is the breadwinner and they're making all the money and they're the ones that are leading the conversations or leading the relationship. And then the other one is a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, and they're in a more submissive role. And it's very clear that one person is in a higher powered position than the other. And in those dynamics, it's very clear to recognize that there is an off balance of power in the relationship. It's a dynamic where they're not equally met. When we're equally met, we're pushing each other to learn and to grow into our higher self together, where you're both playing this tennis match and you're actively participating shot for shot, game for game, dance to dance. You can't see it if you're listening to this, but I'm moving my hands like a wave. If you're watching this, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. It's this dynamism that comes from the dance. But how do we get to being in a power couple dynamic where we're dancing in our power together versus being in a more traditional power dynamic where one has more power than the other and the other is trying to constantly please the other person who's in a more, let's say, higher power dynamic. So how does that tend to happen when there's off power balances? So we'll see again, I'll just use a very, common societal example where the man will work and provide, and then the woman will be like a stay-at-home mom. And she's very much in a less than powerful position because she's not leading, she's not running a business, she isn't changing lives, she isn't making executive decisions, she isn't managing teams. She is at home managing the kids and the house and the duties and the chores, which is still a lot of work. But the position of power, the position of leadership, she's not in a position of power or leadership. he's in that position of power or leadership. He's leading the company, he's leading the business, he's leading the finances, he's leading the direction of their life, and she's going along, and that's the dynamic that they've chosen. Counterbalance that, what I've seen with many of the clients that I coach who are high powered women, she is a high powered executive. She's maybe the partner at her firm. She goes into the office. She is literally closing $1 million deals, and her partner is an artist, a creative, a yoga instructor, very much in flow. Maybe he does martial arts. Maybe he's, doing personal fitness stuff. And he's very much, in a less than powerful position because he's not leading their life or their business or their direction. He's not leading teams. He's just kind of in flow. And so he's in a lesser position because he sees the value that she brings in. So he's going to, play nice and play the part to be able to stay in her good graces so she can still, be in the power position and bring him along. Now, I'm just giving those two examples very clearly so you can understand it's not a men or women dynamic. It's very much a power dynamic. And later on in this season, I will be having a friend of mine on, and we're going to go deeper into the power dynamics that you can explore through the framework of BDSM and conscious kink. These are specific frameworks that you use when it comes to playing out different scenes in erotic play. But for the sake of this episode, I want to talk about it in regards to intimacy and romance, and what we see all over social media is these, power couple dynamics and power dream. And I will say that I'm in power couple dynamic. And the reason why is because I went through the power struggle component in order to then transform it into a power couple dynamic. And it's not an easy journey to go through. And sometimes if you're listening to this and you're going through it yourself, you may even question the dynamic in the beginning. Because so here's what happens. Let me kind of break it down for you. So we attract someone into our life, and we attract them from our point of attraction. Now, our point of attraction is our authentic, natural essence, or it's the essence that we've practiced and we've drilled and we've lived in the most. That's now our point of attraction. So for women who are high powered, and if they're constantly in their masculine armor and in their masculine leadership, and even though they're women, but they're not leading from the feminine, they're leading from their masculine, you're going to attract as a woman who's leading from her masculine, you're going to attract a more feminine based male to come and meet you as your counterpart. Now, it may seem fun in the beginning, but usually what tends to happen is she wants him to step up and to lead. She wants him to be more dominating, but with care, more dominating so she can relax and she can surrender, because she doesn't want to be the boss at work and then be the boss at home in the bedroom. But then that dynamic doesn't actually get transformed because that feminine-based partner may not necessarily want to evolve or step up in his masculine pole. He may enjoy being a yoga instructor and being flowy, or being an artist, and not actually develop the leadership skills to lead his woman with dominance and care. So that scenario, you're not going to really transform your dynamic into a power couple dynamic. Now, this is important to notice because when we look at the natural law of polarity, we're looking at masculine feminine dynamic. And I'm speaking to traditional heterosexual dynamics as well as queer dynamics, right? I got a lot of queens out there that listen to me in my community as well. And there still is a masculine feminine dynamic, even with my queens out there. One's a bottom, one's a top. Same thing as I'm talking about here. Bottom and top, masculine, feminine. Who is the one that's in the receptivity? Who's in the one that's penetrating and giving, right? It's the same thing here. So you're all in my world. You know that I'm all about the art of feminine manifestation, feminine leadership. So from my experience, I'm speaking to my dynamic in my relationship and in the relationships that I chose to create from my natural receptivity in my feminine pole. I intentionally did all of this work to be in my feminine to attract a very masculine partner. And in my feminine power, which is powerful but also soft, I was able to receive a very strong but very gentle, right, and very penetrating masculine counterpart. That's where it gets really fun because there is that chemistry, there is that connection, there is that attraction, and it feels very fun and organic and natural and just fruitful and flourishing. But then here's where things start to move in another direction. Because when we are spending that time together and we're getting to know each other and we're starting to merge more together, then we are getting into a point where now my masculine pole, his feminine pole, his masculine pole, my feminine pole are all beginning to come together into a deeper place of vulnerability, and all parts of us are wanting love. And this is where some parts may resist the vulnerability required to surrender into deeper love, which creates harmony. Some parts may want to show up and control the situation. Some parts might want to show up and control the other person's parts. Some part may also be distorting masculine, feminine, distorting reality. And distorting reality comes from these ideas that we have internally that are distorted on what we think our partner is supposed to be doing or not doing. So, for example, some distorted versions of feminine expression would be she's at home, she's cooking all the time, she's taking care of me, right? Like, let's say for the masculine, I'm going to be the provider. I want her to take care of all my pieces and take care of me and make me feel loved and nurtured. And yes, to some extent that does happen, but there can be a distortion on the expression of what that looks like for him to receive. Same thing on the feminine side, right? And I see that a lot with clients. Like there's a distortion on what his masculine providership is like. She may think, well, he should be leading everything. He should be booking everything. He should be paying for everything. He should be the one that is providing all kinds of things. One of the clients was like, he should be paying for absolutely every trip, even until we're dating and when we're married. And there again, there's a distortion. And the distortion comes from trying to get something from the other person that is trying to meet the reality that you think you will have inside. And when it doesn't happen, we can fall into this behavioral pattern of trying to control or manipulate the situation by imposing more of our power. And men and women have a very different way. Masculine and feminine power express itself in a very, very different way when we are expressing and exuding our power. This is where we are in the inquiry and the exploration of our power, of our dynamics, of our edges. This is not where it gets really smooth, but it is an area that begins to forge the power couple dynamic. So it's not easy in this area because there tends to be more conflict than there is harmony. There can even feel like moments of like, are we even compatible because we're two different humans and we have two different nervous systems and we communicate differently and need things differently and process things differently. One moves fast and one moves slow. One needs to express everything while one tends to just internally process it in their own way. The feminine wants closeness while the masculine needs space. And instead of seeing these things as wrong because they're not the same, it's actually seeing them as an initiation into a deeper understanding of how the other person operates, which is complementary and has its own gifts to be able to give to the relationship versus just the boringness or the blandness of sameness that happens without the polarity. So, for example, if you are both in your like feminine energy, if you're male and female, but you're both feminine and you're both flowing and you're always wanting closeness and you're expressing all the time and you're, moving really slow and you're kind of the same, what happens is you lose that charge and you lose the power in your dynamic because too much of this same thing just kind of neutralizes it. Just like if there's two very masculine people in the relationship, it's going to be very much the same. There's not going to be any softness or spaciousness or sensuality. There isn't going to be a place to luxuriate and rest and relax and nourishment. It's going to be on top, go, 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 as you see all the time, with burnout and with exhaustion and living in the head. Like the masculine is more of the go, go, go in the head. They don't normally think to stop, rest, breathe, take care of the body, take care of the vessel, get into the sensual practice. That's going to be a very beautiful gift that's missing if there's two masculine partners in the relationship. Again, that's not going to create a power couple dynamic. So if two individual people come into the relationship connected to their power, connected to their truth, there is going to be a moment where the power struggle phase shows up. And it shows up because this is where control shows up. This is where fear shows up. This is where your past starts to speak louder at times than just the present, where you may want that love, but then you're also protecting yourself from that love. Or you might be reacting more so than you are responding. You'll get triggered, you'll misunderstand each other, you'll totally mishear each other, you'll test each other to see, how far you can push the other person. Will they leave? Will they not leave? Right? Will they take this much conversation or power, or will they drop? Will they not? Like, there are all these ways that we test in relationship. Both men test women and women test men. So why is there all this testing that's going on? Well, we test before we get into a relationship. Are they trustworthy? Are they able to take care? Do they have enough presence? Are they really committed? Are they really devoted? Can they hold me and handle my heart? Men will do the same. They will test. Are they trying to manipulate me for money or for gain or for status? Do they really like me for me? Do they really accept me for who I am? Can they actually celebrate me? And is this someone that I can learn with, that I can grow with, that I can trust? So we're always testing each other in the very beginning. Then when we pass those tests and we build a level of trust, then we get into this beautiful, blissful energy. And then once we get really comfortable with each other, there's that secondary level of the power struggle dynamic that comes into play. Why? Because we're calibrating each other through our nervous system, right? Our neurosensing. And so now we're starting to sense smaller, more granular things that bring up the fear that we're going to be out of control or that we will lose control, to see if we are really truly safe to go all in a committed devotional relationship dynamic. We're about to get married in July, which is amazing. We went through all of these dynamics before we got engaged. We moved through it all, which was amazing. And I'm sharing it with you because I wish I would have heard an episode of someone telling me that this is actually a very normal part and an integrative part in becoming a very strong, healthy power couple dynamic where neither couple has to dim their light or shine away from being in the fullness of who they are. And where both individuals have space and breath to lead, but know the dance of how and when to take the dominance or the submissive or the leader and the follower role. It's very, very important. And coming from a very leaderful background and leading myself and, being a goddess and having so many men worship me and having my own power position, I came in with a lot of leadership energy and a lot of power, which he absolutely loved. And then he's getting more and more into his energy and more into his kingship and more into wanting to be worshiped and supported and adored. Amazing. I love that. I invoke that in my man. I want the depth of his strength and power. But what does that do? It starts to supercharge the polarity of how opposite we actually are. We think that by invoking more of his masculine energy and more of his masculine presence, that is just going to bring us immediately closer together. But what we're doing is we're actually supercharging his natural pole, which is the opposite of ours. And when it's the opposite of ours, it's going to bring in our own fear dynamic that wants to kind of control a bigger power energy, which we're not sure, to make sure we're safe and to make sure we're able to still have some sort of, in charge and control energy. And then when they show up and they're more loving and they're more celebratory, we let go, we surrender, we trust more, right? As the feminine, we surrender. It's an active process of letting go and surrendering more and more into, their magnificence and their masculine beauty and power, which then blossoms us into more of our natural feminine light and gift and power as creation with our sexual polarity energy, because we're in intimate, romantic, sexual, relational dynamic. So the more that we are in that dynamic, the more that we are sexually charged, the more powerful we are going to become. Because for us as women, our female sexual energy is the most potent, the most creative, the most amplified energy in all of existence, where life comes from itself. So the more that we are engaging in these polarity dynamics, the more that we're actively in love and making love, the more powerful we become. This is where the struggle can tend to come into place, because now they're opposites way of operating. And instead of doing what a lot of people are like, okay, you just merge together and we're trying to merge and that's what makes a power couple. No, it's actually not about merging. The power comes from unifying your fields. Unifying the fields and making a third energy field, not me becoming more masculine, him becoming more feminine. Doesn't work that way. And this is a process that you actually cannot rush, because this is where these new relationship dynamics become forged. These are in all the moments that are not easy. These are in all the moments that, as a feminine being, you choose to stay open when it's just easier to shut down and pull away. These are the moments that most people miss, that most partners don't really want to go into, right? And the thing is, I believe that our partners are our best teachers in polarity. And if we're not in the polarity dynamic that we want to be in, then it's an opportunity for us to come back into tuning in. What is the authentic pole that I want to be in? What is my active responsibility and role in the dynamic? And from that place, I'm going to then express myself. I'm going to then stretch myself into growing more into this pole, and then see how that shifts the dynamic, even without a word. That's how things start to shift. It can happen fast, it can happen slow, but it's by stretching into the expression of you that maybe you tend to reserve or you tend to hide, and learning to discern if it's a moment where you're just being triggered and reactive, or if it's a moment where it's calling you deeper into self-love and self-respect and self-love and acceptance and honoring. And asking yourself the question, and I love what Alison Armstrong says about this, is like, what if no one is misbehaving? Because that tends to happen in a power struggle dynamic. It's like, I want him to do this and he's not doing that, and we're kind of struggling because I'm trying to get my will in my way, or vice versa. He may want me to do something, and it's like struggling for me to kind of shift and get to this way. And we're not the only ones. This is what happens with the high-powered couples that we coach. There is this dynamic of struggle, and it's because we think the other person is behaving badly, that they are misbehaving. They should behave a certain way. Well, what if instead you really got true to yourself and you asked yourself the question, hey, what if they're really not like me? What if they're actually here to teach me something else? Because opposites don't break you, they help build you. And that's what polarity does. It's not meant to break you down and take you onto another side. It's meant to help build more of your authentic essence. And this is where it's really important, because we want to be more delicate with this time. We don't want to share what we're going through with people that are closest to us that may judge or not in the dance of intimacy that you're experiencing, because that dance at times is wonky and it's messy and it could be confusing. And sometimes you may be questioning if this is a right dynamic, not because it's unhealthy, but because it's harder. There's a struggle there. Both of you may be trying to insert your power and your will in the dynamic until finally, there's clarity that comes about. Well, how does the clarity come about? Well, because the results start to change. How do the results start to change? Well, you start to change over time. And over time, the relationship that you guys had at the beginning that was built on, the attraction has now shifted to where you're both bringing your power and you're both not backing down from being in your power. And you also both are not trying to get the other person to not be in their power. You're creating something new, right? You're creating something new moment to moment. Every interaction by every interaction, it's now a new moment, which means the dynamic is changing moment to moment. And through that moment to moment change, just like the laws of nature, through that consistency of practicing, meeting a new moment, creating something new, through honesty, through choosing each other again and again, through choosing the relationship again and again, even when it's not easy, even when things are confusing, right? But again, I'm speaking to a very healthy relationship dynamic, not anything that's toxic or abusive, something specifically around power, where one wants more power or more control, and so does the other. And there is this yin yang push and pull, which is the polarity itself. That's what makes it so amazing, is you get to actually use the magnificent energy of polarity to alchemize the gripping, the clinging, the attachment, the manipulation, the control, the fear into deeper love. And this is a process that cannot be rushed. For some couples, they're in this power struggle dynamic for a few months. Most, if they're very strong, right, and they're continuously commit, some is a few years until they get through the other side. But the difference is that there's an awareness of power, there's an awareness with conversation on the dynamic, right? And this is where it can't be rushed and it can't be forced, and you can't be afraid to explore the depth of what's actually happening and unfolding in your relationship, because this becomes the bridge for everything. Your communication. It's not just the surface level communication of like, we're going to talk about it once and we'll communicate about it, and like who's the power, who wears the pants in the relationship, or who's the leader in this relationship, and who's more submissive, who's going to be at home. It's like, no, it's having these real, sometimes uncomfortable, honest, heartfelt conversations to learn, how is your partner experiencing you? How are they hearing things? Learning how do they process things? Learning how to repair, the art and the gift of repair when things go wrong, when they mishear you, when you feel misunderstood or disrespected, right? Saying things with each other so that you come back to the work, and instead of avoiding conflict, you learn how to fight better. You learn how to communicate better. You learn how to move through things better without losing each other or losing touch with each other or losing the plot of why you guys are together in the first place. And choosing to stay in it together, not running away, not ending the relationship, not labeling it something else or forcing it into another timeline. By doing that, you're both actively surrendering to allow the natural next level to unfold and reveal itself. And then things start shifting. Because what happens in that power struggle dynamic is it's a me versus you, my way versus your way, my belief versus your belief, how I want to do it, how you want to do it. There's this very adversary relationship that happens. And again, it doesn't happen right away in the beginning. It happens the more that you deepen into your relationship. When you've got two very powerful people, how do we integrate this together? And you go from a me and versus you adversary into It's us versus the problem. That's the thing that you actually admire when you look at or hear of stories of power couples, is they've gone through the forges of the fires of fighting against each other, of me versus you, and they've come to actually it's us versus the problem. Us versus the problem is a very, very different mindset and a very, very different energy, because now we're not trying to win anything against each other. We're trying to understand each other more so than be right, more so than have a one up on somebody else. We're trying to build a life together by understanding each other, and we have more dynamic, fluid energy instead of defending and deflecting to try to actually understand what's happening with us against the problem. And this is where the power dynamic is actually born. It's very messy. It's definitely not from perfection at all. And you're choosing to be aligned in deeper love over your own ego again and again and again. That's why I say it's a slow burn. And the couples that you admire, maybe even us, if that is the case, I share this because we're not trying to be on a pedestal. We're not skipping the hard parts, and we're not just magically super compatible in every single freaking way. We stayed, we communicated, we committed, we allowed the relationship to refine and be redefined over and over in our dynamic. We let it be slow, we let it be intentional, we let it be this roaring and constant fireplace in our home, in the space between us, versus this explosive firework or this quick spark that burns out. And the difference that we go from me versus you, my way versus your way, right? This adversarial relationship to it's actually us against this problem. What's the problem? The problem is maybe the misunderstanding. Okay, so it's us against a situation of misunderstanding. Okay, it's not me against you. Okay, what's the problem? Maybe the problem is there's something going on at work or home, right? Or scheduling. It's not your schedule and versus my schedule. It's okay, let's look at our schedule and what's the problem? The problem is maybe we're not spending enough time, or the problem is there's distance when it comes to the amount of time we're spending together, right? That would be more of the problem that we would be coming together to solve. So you shift from adversarial, me versus you, someone trying to win, someone being in a higher up position and someone being in a lower position, to actually being in a dynamic where you're both powerfully meeting each other in the moment, in the middle of the dynamic, and you're choosing to dance in that dynamic. This is a space where two people are consciously choosing through the victory of human spirit to be in partnership. Because anyone can be in a relationship, and there are all kinds of different power struggle dynamics that are at play in relationships. But when we look at the intention of choosing partnership, it's a conscious and intentional choice. And it's a victorious choice of human spirit versus animal body to choose to be in partnership, where you're two people deciding we're not going to be like animals and fighting at each other. We're going to choose to be victorious through the human spirit, which is focused on growth instead of blaming or assumption. So we can build something bigger together, bigger than both of us, surrender to something bigger than the both of us, which is that third dynamic energy. That's where the real magic happens in the relationship transformation. Because instead of wasting so much energy fighting against each other, fighting for the other one to understand you, instead, you're able to actually stop wasting energy in all these meaningless fights or meaningless misunderstandings, and you're able to actually channel it through what you're building in your life together. And here's where the dynamic then transforms into its third unique energy, which is this. There's no longer in a power couple dynamic, there's no longer I'm in the power position and they're in the submissive position. I'm in a higher, they're in a lower. They're equally met. And through that mutual respect, that mutual understanding, that mutual celebration and admiration and support, That's where the dance becomes the art of sacred relating. And it's now this beautiful way where we know who can lead best in this situation. So whether it's the feminine leadership is called for this moment, go, I step up, I lead, he follows, I take charge, right? And then the same thing in the next moment when I know, oh, it needs this masculine leadership, I step back, I follow, I let him lead. That's where it's a dance. It's not static and stationary, it's very dynamic. And that's a really beautiful quality that maybe you didn't think about that comes with the power couple dynamic. It's an ability for both of the parties to be flexible in the dance of leadership and to know when it's their time and when their gifts are needed to come to the table. So even coming to Medellin, it was my idea, my intuition to come to lead us to come to Medellin. He listened, he followed, we went. It's been amazing, right? And there are many things that he does. He leads us to Africa and I listen and I follow, right? And it's this beautiful time where we'll know intuitively and also through communication, hey, are you going to lead us in this? Or do you think it's better in this? Or I need your masculine leadership in this. Or he'll say, hey, I need your feminine leadership in this. So there's still communication, but we know more clearly as a team what's going to make us stronger, what's going to amplify our power as a unit to get us faster and quicker to the fruit of the result that we actually want. It's now us against everything else that is adversary to us in the goal. Does that make sense? I'm sure that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I'll break it to you in another way. It's me and him, like Bonnie and Clyde against the world, except we're not against anything. It's us as a team facing whatever challenges come along the way as we're creating our best, highest, wildest, and wettest life dreams together. And we're facing it together as a team and a unit. And it's being willing to recalibrate, redefine, surrender, let go over and over and over again. It's being willing to have the courage of heart to repair quicker, faster, better, so that the unit could become stronger. And again, it's not about anybody winning. Got to completely surrender that idea. There's actually no one wins in those dynamics. If one person wins, both people actually lose. No one feels good about it in their core. So that's where, again, the magic really happens is when you can flip-flop, when you can be flexible and dance between he steps up, I step up, he steps up, I step up, he steps up, I step up. We all have our own beautiful gifts that we bring to the relationship. And I, again, feel and say this over and over again all the time on my show that we are here as the feminine lead and that the world is so needing more and more feminine leadership now more than ever before. This world needs more of the feminine leadership. It needs more empathy. It needs more nurturance. It needs more collaboration. It needs less conquering and manipulation and control. And it needs more harmony. It needs more collaboration. It needs more compassion, more understanding, more inquiry, and really more of this collective playful dance and dynamism, which is the Shakti embodied in life itself. And the more that we can bring our feminine leadership and our feminine gifts to the relationship as a gift for our partner to grow into, and don't get afraid if you're going through this, that maybe you're experiencing something like this in your own dynamic as well. If you're in this space right now and it feels messy or it feels unclear, or you're like, what the fuck, Josephina? It's kind of hard. It's a little bit confusing. I'm not sure. Don't rush it, right? Don't rush it. This may be the exact part where you guys are about to forge yourself into a whole new relationship depth and dynamic that you've been asking for. Because again, power couples are not created by ease. It's created by moments where love is chosen consciously and the weapons are chosen to be put down and you're chosen to come together in responsibility, in communication and growth. And that's where the two of you can continue to find each other instead of fighting each other. Again, find each other instead of fighting each other. We are all here at this time right now to build something bigger and better on this planet that is needed. So, my invitation for you is to, instead of stop admiring power couples and think they got it so easy and it's all together, I want to invite you to start to actually look at your relational dynamic and your own power dynamics in your relationship and decide. First, look, is this something that I actually like? Am I happy in? Am I satisfied in? Am I fulfilled in? And be honest with yourself. And then from there, start to get the inquiry of like, okay, if this is kind of what I want, but it's not fully what I want, get in the inquiry about, well, what would you desire to be differently? How would you desire the dynamic to be differently? How would you desire to participate or lead more in the dynamic? Because even submitting and being a follower requires active participation. It's not relinquishing my responsibility when I follow him, to a city, or I follow him on a business idea, or, even just on a date night. Like, I'm actively participating in surrendering and in trusting and in letting go and relaxing everything in my body to go along, right? And that's an active participation on my side. Just like it's an active participation on him to make sure he's holding me and holding my heart and making sure no one's going to get me or nothing's going to harm me, right? That's an active participation. Both parties are going to want to act into that. So don't just think that, you want your man to lead more and be bigger and then you're going to surrender. It's, what are you willing to give as well? What are you needing to let go of, or can you put down your weapons and your swords of your protections and shown up in more vulnerable authenticity on what you're desiring to experience and where you're desiring to grow together in your relationship dynamic? Because you can absolutely alchemize and transform your dynamic into one that's a power couple dynamic versus a power struggle dynamic, or a dynamic that has no power and is filled with nothing but, numbness or vanilla or bland. Nothing's wrong with vanilla, but just like it's very bland. It's just very like roommate situation. There's nothing happening there. I don't want that for you. And I don't think anybody really wants that. So my invitation is that let this episode ignite something new in you and new in your relationship dynamic, so that you can also have the power couple dynamic of your dreams that you want to be in, just the same as you see and admire to others. Be the example, be the dynamic that you also want to embody, because the world needs more and more people that are on a team together, because there's a lot more crazy shit in the world out there. And we need a lot more loving people that are teammates together versus adversaries. So may you go deeper in love. May you go deeper into your relationship intimacy. And may you explore the dance of polarity in a new way.